Welcome to the Listening Well, the space where every story matters. I'm Shania, your host and therapist, here to share real conversations and anonymous letters from listeners who are ready to speak their truth or just share something that they want to tell. Some stories are spoken, some are written, all are worth hearing. Let's listen in. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today to listen to a new episode and another story. We are here with a new guest. I'm really excited to have her on today. We were actually able to connect many moons ago on a previous podcast that I had. So I'm really glad to have her back to kind of see what's new and to share about her book. So, not with further ado, I would love for you to introduce yourself, share a bit about you, and what drew you to coming on to the podcast.
Number one, you just reminded me. The what?
Yes.
I don't know. Wow. And I guess still today, I still love the title.
Thank you.
My name is Chandrika Fee. I am a native of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Go Sooners. I live in Georgia. I am the oldest of four girls, and we all are pastors' kids.
Oh, nice.
And pastors' kids many times over because my grandparents were pastors, and then my mom, and then aunts and uncles, and it's just a generational thing to be clergy. So I too am clergy. I have a degree in biblical studies, and I am ordained a reverend. I went to live in China for 2 years, and it
Wow.
revolutionized my life. And it's one of the inspirations, or if you will, the garden or the soil for what would then grow the sentiment and prayer. Lord, I don't want to die a Christian.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about what brought you to go to China? That's a huge thing to do.
What made me have the courage to go? Because
Yeah.
I had never traveled to another country before. When I got the job to teach in China, I didn't even have a passport. When I left Georgia to go to California to train for the position for 2 weeks, I still didn't have a passport. And I left Georgia on a one-way ticket
Wow.
to California to go to China. I was just really trusting God, trusting the process. But what made me courageous, because that's what it was, I was definitely scared or hesitant, anxious, all of the things, was that I had broken off in an engagement.
Okay.
And so, I tell people all the time, often when you break off an engagement or break up a relationship, a woman, we get our hair cut off or we get a tattoo or whatever. I went to China. I went to live in another country, and I went to China to change China. And what happened is China changed me.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about what you mean by that and saying that you went to China to change China, but China changed you?
Well, China is a communist country, is supposedly, if you will, no religious freedom. And so I thought I was going to go there and make Christians. I thought I was going to, and I did, but I mean, I just was going to change the country.
Okay.
I was going to go make disciples of Jesus. And what I have learned is that you should go to these different countries that you weren't born in and live in and go and learn. And I didn't do enough learning, but enough to come back to the States and not want what I went over there to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I was away from my religious experience for 2 years while I was offering it, not the religious experience, but the fundamentals of the experience. While I was offering the fundamentals of my religious experience, I wasn't having my religious experience.
Right.
It makes sense. So, the fundamentals of Christianity, I was offering to freshman college students. I was offering to them that Jesus loved them and that Jesus died and rose and that, God loved unconditionally and that you have to, do the prayer of salvation to accept Jesus into your heart, all of the things. But the religious experience around those fundamental teachings, I was not having because I lived in a communist country.
Right.
So there was no congregational meeting.
Yeah.
There was no shouting and dancing and speaking in tongues, and
Mhm.
there was no prayer meetings, and there was no bishops, and there was no designated parking spots and designated seats, and there was no regular Sunday morning service and Wednesday night Bible study. It was none of that. So I come back to the States to go back to that, and I didn't want it.
Okay. So it sounds like you had like a total transformation of sort, really growing up, being in the church heavily, becoming someone who is of the church yourself. I'm really dedicating your life to that, so much so that you went to another country with that intentionality to be able to, spread that gospel, share what you've learned, and kind of come out in a totally different direction, it sounds like.
Right, right. I came back and I went back to what I had come from, what I grew up in, and I felt claustrophobic. I was getting weary of seeing the same people every Sunday and
Okay.
every other time they met. I was getting weary of hearing I want to be kind, but the rhetoric, or maybe not the rhetoric, but the thoughts that come from limited thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I was that was getting tired, but that was getting tiring, but it was also introducing me to who I had become.
Okay.
Because I was so focused in China on making disciples that I didn't realize I wasn't having the religious experience. I just was focused on what I was there for. And then I come back and I experience culture shock, and
Oh, wow.
I realized that I didn't, you know, I didn't tithe for 2 years. Like, wait, what? And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I didn't realize I wasn't doing it
Mm.
is another layer of not doing it, or added to not doing it. Never mind that I lived my life not even realizing it, not even missing it. And at that time, I was in my good 30s.
Okay.
So I was born eating, drinking communion, and
Right.
taking a cup and the bread. I was in my mama's belly for 9 months, and once a month for sure, you know, every first Sunday she was taking communion. So it's all I knew and know. And I came back to it and was like, I didn't do this for 2 years. What was I doing?
Yeah. It
If
sounds
I
like.
wasn't talking about the devil for 2 years, what was I doing? What was I
Mhm.
talking about?
Mhm.
And so I had to answer those questions to myself. And that led me to more questions and more questions and more questions. And so, hence, ended up writing a book.
Okay. So that kind of brings us to our storytelling segment of today's show, and the show in general. So coming here today to be able to share more, maybe a sneak peek into the book, whatever the story may be, what moment or story from your life feels important to tell here?
What moment or story? Is that
Yeah.
what you said? Oh gosh. Oh gosh. There's too many to tell. I don't know. I'll just go with the most recent one I told, which I'm not sure is relevant, but maybe so. In the process of writing the book and its publishing, and even the success of it, still there's nothing that tops completing it.
Okay.
Publishing it is extra. Getting a publishing deal is extra. The look of it is extra. The ratings, extra. I even got it's award winning. It's won 3 awards.
Congratulations.
All that extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The completion of it is the most rewarding. If no one had ever heard of it, I finished it.
Okay.
And to me, that is the most important part of the journey of having this book.
Mhm.
It turned out to look like this. I don't know if this is
Yes,
the
I've
right
seen the
way.
cover. Yes, it looks great.
Yeah. And it just it's before it came to that, just to be finished,
What did that mean
to
to you
complete it.
to complete and finish that process when it's so close
I
and
kept
sounding very near and dear to you?
I kept my word to myself. And I think too, again, it still was, and I'm still going through this journey, but different, in a different way. I was still journeying to myself. So, this Lord, I don't want to die Christian, my journal and journey to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still journeying, if you will, to freedom. I think I'll be always not dying a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't start that journey till I was in my 40s and I'm just 50. So, most of my life has been dedicated to being, if you will, the best Christian I could be.
Right.
To being the most educated I could be as well, and informed.
Mm-hmm.
But so I said that to say, so I have a long way to go, to not dying a Christian. I think that as long as I am living in this world and this society I live in that is of this world, there will always be an opportunity not to be dying a Christian. It'll always be new.
What does it mean to you to not die as a Christian?
One of the most important things for me is to learning or unlearning, either way you want to see it, unlearning a dislike for differences.
Okay.
That's really good to me. I like those two D's. But, religion doesn't invite, in my opinion and my experience, doesn't invite loving despite the differences.
Mm.
And in my opinion and my experience, Christianity kept me from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, when I decided that I don't want to die a Christian, it wasn't just, okay, I love everybody. I have to work on that every day, or I have to work on unlearning
Mm-hmm.
a dislike for differences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of internal work and conversation.
Yeah.
Because again, as the world around me evolves, then here's another opportunity to figure out what I believe about certain subjects, certain issues, and how do I see that or view it from the perspective of love,
Mm-hmm.
from the eyes, if you will, the
Right.
lens of love. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's work.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a job.
That's
a job. If one wants to be committed to loving people despite the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the journey that I'm on. But I had to, my book is about asking questions of what Christianity taught me.
Okay.
So that I can strip away, if you will, strip that away and figure out what it is I want to believe, why I want to believe it, what is going to allow me to love people despite the difference. Nothing is more important to me than that.
Was there any particular resources of information that you leaned onto, or people that you spoke with that helped break down what sounds like a disconnect that kept you from being able to love people, to love them not because of, or to not love them because of who they are?
No. It just was my own personal experiences. I thought about this the other day. I'm Pentecostal. So we in Pentecostal church, Black church, and by Pentecostal for your listeners, I mean charismatic, there's a lot of movement and sound and expression and all of that in the church I was raised in. And I'll never forget this young man being at the altar for prayer. He had gone to the altar for prayer. And I was sitting behind him. It's not funny, but I was sitting behind him and just kind of looking at him. And I walked up to him and said that God said, don't come back until you're serious.
Mm.
And years later, I realized that was from a place of judgment. That was not God. That was Chandrika sizing up someone who was different from me or different from what I believed.
Right.
Was an expression of something different than what I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go back years later and apologize, reach out to him and apologize. And I don't know if that did any damage more than that he just was pissed, but it's something that I regret.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be consulting with other people. I was committed to the religious expression, being it and making other people be it and look like what I had been taught that it is. That's all I needed. I was enough.
Right.
Never mind anybody else, I was enough.
What does it look like now, like to still be connected to faith? Like, does that relationship look different in the day-to-day or in practice?
I kind of want to take that word faith back. I think everybody is connected to faith.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be committed to a religion or a certain practice to be connected to the idea of belief or the energy of believing. Mm-hmm. This is what faith is. Faith is believing, and believing is an energy. And so I've never disconnected from believing. None of us do. If you do, I don't know how you live it.
Right.
But yes, I've disconnected from the rigorous, time-consuming idea of religion. Mm-hmm. The critical thinking thief that is religion. I've never said some of these things I'm saying today. But the diversity, the robber of diversity, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I love having diversity in my life, a diversity of people who believe something different or not. I don't really know. And that's the fun part. I don't care.
Right.
If it comes up, if belief comes up, great. I'm so excited to be able to listen and hear. My neighbor said to me the other day, she said, I say this all the time. This is what I call God. And she said, some people get offended. This after I told her I believe in God and call God daddy. And she said, some people get offended when I say what it is. I said, there's nothing you can say about God or the lack thereof that would offend me. Absolutely nothing. And she said, I'll call him Sky Daddy. I said, okay. And that was it. Like, I don't care. You can call him Sky Mama. You can call God she. It's not, it just is not, it's so good. It feels so good to not have a monopoly.
Right.
Right. I do not, I don't have the corner on God. Mm-hmm. Or on the idea. Mm-hmm. Because it started as an idea, and it's our belief that fuels the idea, that makes this idea something that could be real.
Right.
It's interesting having this conversation while it has been viral that the rapture was coming this week.
I did see something about that, and I was going to take some time to understand where that came from, but didn't get to it. I came across some video where like a guy was an Uber driver, and I guess like there were people, you saw that too, some people from the church that were in the car, and they were saying like the rapture was coming. They wanted to bless someone, and he got like $1,000 in cash from them, but I never saw like where that came from. Like, do you have an idea of like the origin of that? Like any information at all?
As it seems, and I've tried to find an original video, but as it seems, this guy who's a pastor in Africa goes on this talk show and tells these two ladies, like a podcast, that the rapture is coming on September 23rd. And that's and that took off.
It seems like it. I keep seeing little bits and pieces, and I'm still like not seeing the origin.
It took off. I saw a video today of people in the woods. I assume it's Africa. I assume, or I'm led to believe that it's some of his congregation.
Yeah.
And they're in the woods looking up at the sky and waiting.
Yeah.
And crying and waving.
Yeah, that sounds like a disastrous experience to go through to like think and feel that like your time is like up any second, any moment now, like it's all over to be. And then like what do you do after that when, you know, odds are that like you're still here?
Yeah, yeah. Parents with their children. I
Mm-hmm.
saw someone say that the lady gave her children to CPS.
Wow.
Um, uh, yeah, it's as a person who doesn't want to be wrapped up in religion. One of the things that has introduced me to though is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, walking away, practicing, taking a step further away from it has introduced me to empathy. And I don't, it's so hard. I almost wish that it had happened.
Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit more about what you mean about that?
It just, I hate for them to be just so disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, empathy doesn't choose. You, as an empathetic person, you have to have boundaries,
Right.
but it doesn't choose who and what to feel for, whether it be pity, sorrow, happy, sad, joyous, whatever. It doesn't choose. And so it's just like, man, as much as I don't believe in it, I almost wish it had happened just so that y'all didn't have to be hurt and disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
I've shared privately some of the videos that are making fun of the idea, but I've shared them privately, not publicly,
Mm-hmm.
because again, the standard is to love people, but I am human. Some of this stuff is funny. And so I won't share publicly, but in my, just in my humanity, between my friends and I was like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really really heartbreaking to see these people, several people get online and apologize for what they said, and now you can't take back the impact that it had on people after you promoted it. And
Right.
that's heartbreaking.
Really is. Yeah.
I was talking to my mentor the other day. I said, but it's no different. It's no different from the Christian who thinks that these people are crazy. You know, I was reading today, just as a reminder, a scripture in Corinthians where it's written that Paul, the apostle, said that Jesus, I think, came to him, and then Paul gave to them what Jesus gave to him. And this is an introduction to communion,
Mm-hmm.
and it's no different. You know, you show up every first Sunday to do this communion ceremony based off of someone saying that someone came to them and they gave that to the disciples or whoever's reading.
Right.
The Church of Corinthians at that time, it's a letter to the Corinthian church, and you show up for it.
Mm-hmm.
These people believed that this pastor had this vision,
Mm-hmm.
and they showed up for it
Right. They're
because
following
someone said,
exactly what they were told.
yeah, it's the same thing. At least what I want to say, at least the man is alive and you heard his voice and you see his face. For many, many decades, people have opened a book, just read the words. My coworker said to me today, you know, in essence, she was saying, well, if the Bible is not the word, if it's not God's words, then what are they? I said, well, I wrote a book. Whose words are they?
Right. Who knows?
She said, well, where did it come from? Where did the Bible come from? Where did my book come from?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you got a point. It came from your mind. Right.
Right. Exactly.
That was literally, I mean, that just shifted the whole conversation to a healthier exchange, actually, a more freeing exchange.
And that's great because there's
Because
not
now we
always,
can really
yeah, there's not always those
go ahead.
opportunities to, you know, have those conversations where like people may believe in something similar, but if it's not that same exact thing, it can really lead to a place of conflict and misunderstanding instead of just holding space that, more than one thing can exist at once, because like you said, we are all able to believe in faith in the way that makes sense to us and be connected to that energy, and knowing that that's okay.
Yeah. So what a time to be alive. And, I think the sad thing about the other part is that is apparent to me is that people are not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're ready to go because they aren't happy. And I would even say the same thing about the disciples who asked Jesus, "When are you coming back to set up your kingdom?"
Mm-hmm.
They weren't happy, and so to see so many people giving away things and ready to go and just let's go.
Right.
It's here finally. It's like, man, I so hate that you aren't happy.
Right. It's heartbreaking.
To be yeah, that's sad. So kind of, it's kind of interesting, and it's all interesting about the power of belief and um, but hey, the world is big enough for every kind of belief.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's big enough for every kind of belief there is, and more. It's big
Mm-hmm.
enough. And so it's great to know that, to be in a place to know and learn and, be, put myself in the way of even differences in beliefs, to have great, healthy conversation and to love despite the difference.
Right. If there's one thing that you hope that listeners take away from hearing your story, being able to resonate with what you shared, what would that be?
Love despite the difference. Be intentional about that. Make up your mind that no matter where you go and who you meet and what their story is, love despite the difference.
Thank you. I think that's so well said. That could be a quote to plaster somewhere as just a gentle reminder of just holding space for each other. And every episode, when we have a guest, we have our person that's with us sharing their story leave a question for our listeners and our next guest to answer. So, for you, what would that question be for them to think about and reflect on?
How can you use the power of belief to impact your community?
That's really strong. Well said. If you had
Yeah.
any initial thoughts to that question, what would that be for you?
You know, my experience, even as of late, is right now I am, somewhat surrounded by people who live in fear. And I am determined to believe in the best and positive outcome for this particular situation that I am growing through.
Right.
I just, I've got to believe that it's going to work out in my favor,
Mm-hmm.
that justice will prevail. So, but I'm surrounded by people who don't believe. I'm sorry. I'm surrounded by people who don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
So use the power of belief to impact your community, the people around you. Because I can't wait to see what I believe come to pass.
Right.
And I can't wait to report. Just like these people believed that the rapture was coming. I
Mm-hmm.
know what it is to believe. And we saw their belief impact each other.
Right. In
Use your
real time.
power, the
Wait.
power in yeah, use the power of belief to impact your community in a way that is good, though.
Right.
In a way that hopefully ensures an outcome that is not hurtful or disappointing.
Thank you for that. And the previous guest on the show left a question for you. And that question is, what part of yourself may you be hiding behind in shame and guilt?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's what I said too.
Gosh. I don't know. I think that's a question I'm gonna have to go to bed on.
Right.
Because I want to say I'm not hiding behind anything. Um, because, and I say that because Christianity is a great place to hide. It's a
Mm.
great place to hide. It's a great place to hide shame and guilt. I don't know, man. I have to think about that. I'm human, so there should be something.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, nothing's coming to me. Living in China, and I offer this, living in China, I committed to living out loud, not hiding, finding my most authentic self. You
Yeah.
know, when I was asked what next from after my book, my next assignment is to be authentic because I lived for 2 years in a culture that saved face.
Mm-hmm. Mm, very true.
Saving face was a yeah, it's a very much rich cultural thing. And to see a whole nation doing that, as it seems, that is a part of the culture. I
Right.
was like, I can't hide anymore. I can't do that. There's too many other people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I work at being my authentic self. And it produces it well, it there's an effort that comes with that. So when I said earlier, it's believed that Paul wrote this letter, whatever. I
Right.
used to say, Paul said, well, that's not authentic. I didn't know Paul, I wasn't there. I
Right.
don't say Jesus said. I say it was written of Jesus to have said.
Mm-hmm.
So like I really do work on this, like everything I communicate, I try to be authentic. I'm searching for words even as we talk,
Mm-hmm.
the best word that would be authentic to my experience.
Right. And I really
So
appreciate that.
I'm not sure how to
Yeah. I really
yeah.
appreciate that type of framing because it holds space for people to know that there is that option to say, like, okay, like, do I believe Paul said that? If Paul didn't say that, like, what does that mean to me? Like, it sounds like it really holds space for people to have different thoughts and opinions and not feel shame or
Uh,
guilt
uh,
and hide behind that.
right, right. Aside from what we read in this book that we have made an authority, you get to this is a whole nother conversation. When I started asking questions of what I believe and why I believe them, I started seeing these people as people. So, I wanted to be the Proverbs 31 wife. That was a thing, when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I go and read and realize that this chapter is written by a mother for her son. It's her prayer for her son.
Mm-hmm.
And to such authenticity to the point of, did my mama pray this for me?
Mm.
That kind of authenticity. So I stopped trying to be a quote unquote Proverbs 31 wife and started trying to figure out who I am, who I want to be.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, this is somebody's mama praying this for their child. I'm not a child, but the seek for authenticity to the point that you can see them as them and you as you.
Right.
David is quoted to have said, I was born in sin, shaped in iniquity. When you seek for authenticity, you see the I. And then you get to ask David, why did you say that about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
But growing up in church, I was also born in sin, shaped in iniquity, even though he's talking about himself
Right.
as the narrative reads, you know? So again, to seek the authenticity, to seek how is it I am to be in this world? How is it am I to exist in this world?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. There has been so many insightful points throughout this conversation, and I truly, really look forward to listeners having the opportunity to receive your story and even read your book. I would love for you to share a bit. Looks like we may have lost our guest here. So what I'll have her do is share a closing to be able to add into this piece here. It was so great to hear her story. I was just about to have her plug her links, but I will be sure, as always, to link them into the show notes. We won't be having a reflection today to make sure that we have some time to work through our tech issue here. But as always, thank you for tuning in and be well. Hi, everyone. I know this pop-in is a little disruptive, but I'm currently editing the video for today. We had some technical difficulties, and we have been lucky enough to connect with Chandrika, and she was able to send us her kind of closing thoughts and things, just so that we have a whole episode to provide to you all. So that will be popped in right here, and I hope that you enjoy it.
I am grateful for the Listening Well for having me on as a guest. I appreciate the conversations. Great questions, of course. I am still thinking about the last question I was asked. Very, very deep, and cause for very deep reflection. So, yeah, I'm still meditating on that one. I won't reveal it, but I'm still meditating on it. Again, very grateful. You can find me on all social media platforms. That is, if all means Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you can find me there. Reach out to me. Share your questions about what religion has taught you and how you want to show up in the world. I'd be glad to hear from y'all. Again, thank you, Listening Well. Bye.
Thanks for joining me at the Listening Well. If you have a story, a secret you've never shared, or a question you'd like advice on, or just something that you would like to share with somebody else, you can send it in anonymously if you wish at the email thelisteningwell25@gmail.com. Every story matters here, and I can't wait to hear yours. Until next time, keep listening and sharing.